Game 2 of this 3-game series in the Bronx at Yankee Stadium. Dodgers rolling the Yankees last night 8-2, taking the series opener. And with the Giants losing, the lead grows to 4. Welcome inside with Oral and Nomar. I'm Joe Davis. Alana Rizzo joins us in just a moment. And as you look at this from a big picture standpoint, isn't it amazing how much better a 4-game lead with 19 left feels than a 3-game lead with 20?
Yes, it feels better, but you got to keep your foot on the gas. These Dodgers have spent 53 days in first place, but the only day that matters is the last day. The Giants 106 days in first place, but you know what? The 4-game separation, the Dodgers have looked at that. They have looked at San Francisco ahead of them. It only took them 15 games to catch them. So with 19 left, you can't still feel comfortable.
Yankees playing for plenty as well. They're trying to track down a wild card spot. And as far as the pitching matchup in this one goes, Julio Urias, the kid for the Dodgers. Can't really call the guy starting for the Yankees a kid. It's the 36-year-old CC Sabathia.
Yeah, between these two, there are similarities and some contrasts. Similarities, well, they're both left-handed on the hill, but the contrasts are relevant. Obviously, age being one of them, but also if you look at their season, you look at CC Sabathia in his first half, he was pretty good. He had a low ERA of 2.2, but has really struggled in the second half and has also been susceptible to the long ball. On the other side, Julio Urias as well. You see his first half as he started breaking into the major leagues, he started to get better and better with each start. Over his last 5 starts, he's had an ERA under 2.
Dodgers are tracking down a franchise record for most wins in a season by rookie pitchers. They're nipping at the heels of the 1955 World Champion team. First pitch from the Bronx here in Game 2 of this 3-game series comes up on the other side of this break. Dodgers and Yankees game 2 from Yankee Stadium in New York City. Joe Davis, Nomar Garciaparra, Oral Hershiser, and Alana Rizzo. The Dodgers come into the game with a 4-game lead in the National League West after the Giants were shut out by the Padres last night. Dodgers have won 7 of 9. They have the best record in the majors since the second week of June. Well, Dave Roberts starting to put an eye on the postseason. Perhaps this is a preview for what a lineup might look like against left-handed starters. Howie Kendrick leads things off. Then it's Justin Turner. Only the 11th time this season he's hit second. Seager's third. How about Puig hitting cleanup for only the 2nd time this season and the 1st time since late June. Carlos Ruiz is back in there with the lefty on the mound. That means Hernandez and Seguin both get starts as well. And Chase Utley hitting 9. All against the 36-year-old. He's having his best season since his last All-Star season. That was in 2012 for CC Sabathia. And we talk about Julio Urias and all the young starters for the Dodgers. Much different here. Sabathia making his 479th career start tonight.
Yeah, and he really has kind of a tale of 2 seasons, especially in the first half. When you look at his first 11 starts, he only allowed 2 home runs in his first 11 starts, but then if you look over his last 15, he's allowed 18 home runs, so he's been susceptible to the long ball in the second half of the season. He's only faced the Dodgers twice in his career, where he's 1-0 with a 1.2 ERA, but the last time was back in 2010. And also, the way he pitches, we're used to seeing Sabathia come at you with that fastball, but the velocity's been down on it. Now he uses every pitch about equally, the fastball, the cutter, the slider, and the changeup, and now tries to pitch to softer contact.
Has not had very good success here at home. The righties are flipping the ball over the right field wall on him, and he doesn't have enough velocity to get in on him, so he really has to try and trick you and make outstanding pitches to get you out.
Our closed captioning tonight brought to you by Shumash Casino Resort. Sabathia in his 16th major league season. Half of that career spent with the Yankees. Former Indian for a short period of time, a Milwaukee Brewer. And a guy that has terrorized him throughout his career, Howie Kendrick, stands in to get us going with ball 1. A .455 career average for Kendrick against Sabathia. And on 1-0, that one's low. 2 balls, no strikes. Kendrick in the opener last night, 2 of 3. Was a welcome sign for Dodger fans. Kendrick was 1 for his previous 20. The 2-0 and strike 1. Roller coaster season for Sabathia. Such a fantastic start. Had one of the best ERAs in baseball after the first couple of months. But then really struggled through the middle part of the summer. 2-1 upstairs, and it's 3-1 on Kendrick.
Well, we were talking amongst ourselves before the game about the Dodgers and their offense. I thought they did a great job yesterday getting on the Yankees pitcher early, putting some runs on, especially for De Leon on the hill. He's nice to get Urias some early runs.
3-2.
It is not rare lately for Howie Kendrick to work the count. Last 40 at bats, 10 walks. So he has a good eye. And here in the leadoff position tonight, where you can hit him anywhere in the order, it's a good guy to see a lot of pitches and get on base.
He's worked a full count to start tonight's game on 3-2. He takes ball 4. To your point, Oral, he's been patient lately, and he starts this game with a prototypical leadoff AB. The Yankees defense tonight is brought to you by Clamato and Mark Teixeira, whose role has been diminished here in what will be his final major league season, is back in there first.
Yeah, and he's a 5-time Gold Glove winner over there at first base. And as you mentioned, he has said this is going to be his last season. And if you look about what he's done, he has 406 home runs, and he was the 5th switch hitter in baseball to achieve 400 home runs.
Justin Turner taking a ball. Rare start in the 2 spot for him. First time he's hit second since June. It is 27th home run of the season last night. Two and 0. And out to the mound goes Brian McCann. Sabathia shaky to begin.
This Dodger club has heard a lot about they have not been very effective against left-handed starters this year. It's one thing to go through a slump individually and get questions. One thing to go through a defensive slump, make a few errors and get a media scrum around your locker. It's another thing for a whole team to hear about it. And they're doing a good job so far not forcing the issue, making CC throw strikes.
Kendrick walked, and a 2-0 to Justin Turner is in for a strike. Sabathia's 2-1. Got in on Turner, and the count evens at 2-2.
I was just thinking about that 2-0 pitch. You see that 2-0 pitch that he threw to Justin Turner. You're in a hitter's count, and you're thinking, okay, what do you usually get? Well, you're going to get that fastball, right? This is a hitter's count. Be ready for that. Take a big swing. But he didn't get. He got that cutter in. That's the other thing about CC Sabathia. In the past, you would say, okay, he's going to attack me with that fastball. He's going to try to get in there and prove that I can catch up to it. Well, now he's going out a little different tactically.
Northern California native CC Sabathia on 2-2 has one hit back off his glove that he recovers to throw out Turner. Up the second goes Kendrick. I think anytime you see a guy who pitches as long as he has, there's going to be an evolution in the way that he pitches, and it's been the case with CC.
Dodgers catch a break here with the clank off CC's glove, and then CC just gathers himself and gets the out at first. Instead of 2 out, nobody on. At least Howie Kendrick gets the second.
The fastball you were talking about, Nomar, there was a time where he threw that fastball almost half the time. He's hardly thrown it at all this year. It's been a cutter. Here's Corey Seager. And Seager yanks one just foul. It's a cutter that Sabathia started to learn from Andy Pettit. And they got some advice from Mariano Rivera on how to throw the cutter. Of course, Rivera considered to have the best cutter ever. And kind of be the one responsible for making it the in pitch in this era. Oh, 2.
You talk about him mixing up his pitches and how, yeah, you're right. He used to average about half the time with that fastball. But even in his last outing, we get these scouting reports and you look at his pie charts. It was pretty much the pie chart even across the board. Changeup, cutter, fastball, slider, all around. Those 4 pitch around 25%. So all pretty much even on all of them.
Brings an 0-2 to Seager, and look out. Handcuffed him, and Seager lucky to get out of the way of it.
Corey does such a great job of staying in there against lefties. It doesn't matter if it's a left-hander on the mound or a right-hander. He's going to stay in and read the ball, and that's why guys as good a hitters as he is, that's why they look the most dangerous on that ball inside. The bad hitters are already bailing.
Reaches out and drags it to Castro at second for the second out. On pitches like that, you might wish you were a bad hitter.
Well, I think you see that last pitch, that slider. See how he had to reach out for that and kind of got it off the end of the bat. But it's recognizing pitches like that, say off lefties, that okay, I might not be staying in there long enough, so I really have to force myself. So in a pitch before, you're thinking, I don't know if I'm going to get a slider or not. So you're really staying in there, so you're susceptible to that one up and in.
Yasiel Puig with a man at third and 2 gone in the first inning. Come inside with ball 1. Hitting cleanup for the second time this season. Only other time was in June against Pittsburgh. Homered last night. First career pinch hit home run. Dave Roberts was really pleased with the fact that He went down to prepare himself in the batting cage for that pinch hit opportunity. The 1-0. 1-1. So many different little things, not just the 3 home runs that he's hit since returning.
Uh-oh.
Oh, did he?
And the reason I say that, just when he took that swing, looked like he hurt something on that swing.
Front shoulder or wrist?
I wonder if he hit himself with a bat in his back. Watch the way the bat comes back, and he hit right there. And
it sure looks like it's left side.
Right.
On 1-1.
It looks like he's really moving that left shoulder.
Not going to be a fun way to test how hurt it is by swinging. And at 3rd and 2 out, and a scoreless first. And he's in a lot of pain.
Yeah.
Nathan Lucero, the trainer, comes out.
Yeah, that was really a protective swing right there. Not to protect yourself from the pitch, but to protect yourself from it hurting.
You can start to speculate what body part, but I think we just better watch.
Regardless of what it is, you can only imagine the thoughts going through his head as he's feeling this pain right now. Really? After everything he's been through this season, the tear he was starting to go on. 2 balls and 2 strikes, and Sabathia comes home. Puig puts it in play wide of 3rd and foul.
He had the pinch hit home run last night. And that he looked very healthy and happy there. So this might have been something that happened specifically in this at bat. Nothing that has been lingering.
He takes upstairs, full count. Talk about the issues this team has had against left-handed pitching. The hope is that Puig is part of the answer to that problem here down the stretch. The 3-2, and the inning is over. More wincing from Puig on that swing and a miss. the game to play defensively after experiencing pain during that first at bat. And the Yankees ready to bat for the first time tonight. Here's Joe Girardi's starting lineup. Brett Gardner's at the top of it again. Rob Refsnyder makes his first start of the series. Same with Mark Teixeira out of the 5 spot. And the bottom part of the order the same as last night, that managed only 2 runs against Jose De Leon, and then the Dodger bullpen. And it's another young guy that they'll face off with tonight. A 20-year-old out of Mexico who's making his first appearance in 11 days. And Julio Urias has been as good as anybody. It's his latest call up. His last 5 games, he's 4-0 with an ERA of 1.44.
This is the largest differential between the Giants and the Dodgers, where Julio has taken the mound. So if you think he can deal with pressure or he can't, New York's not going to bother him. This is where he made his debut against the Mets. New York's not going to bother him. And the games between the Dodgers and the Giants, because every time he's taken the mound, it's either been a half a game up or 1 game down or 2 games down or 1 game up. So this is not as big a deal for him as you would think.
Little cushion in the standings, little breathing room for him. Starts off against the veteran Gardner with strike 1. Gardner 0 for 3 with a walk last night. Dodgers were able to do something nobody lately has been able to do, and that is keep him off the bases for the most part. 9 hits in his previous 4 games. On the ground to Chase Utley. And a ground ball out starts Julio's night. Clamato defense for the Dodgers has a local product and a former Yankee farmhand, and Rob Segedin starting in left field tonight, or right field tonight.
Not only a Yankee farmhand, but also a huge Yankee fan. So grew up a big Yankee fan, and now here he is out there at Yankee Stadium. He's got family coming out here. We know about the family that saw him at Dodger Stadium when he made his debut. Well, we're out here excited to see him at Yankee Stadium, and let's just hope when he gets a big hit today, knocks in a few runs, that they cheer for him.
Yeah, you know? Right. Rob Refsnyder, Southern California native. Strike 1 for you. That was your first game at Dodger Stadium, and I know for you, Oral, it would have been a couple different spots that were special for you.
The old Yankee Stadium, because I was born in Buffalo, New York. Old Tiger Stadium, because my dad had a job in the Detroit area at that time when they won it all in '68.
And your first trip to Dodger Stadium was as a member of the Red Sox.
And I remember, it was like, wow, I'm playing at Dodger Stadium. Obviously, you know, been to LA playing against the Angels, but it wasn't the same playing at Dodger until winning at Dodger Stadium. I'm like, all right, this is special.
14th major league start for Julio Urias. And a 2-1 to Rob Refsnyder. 2-2. Did you hear that from Gary Cedarstrom, the crew chief and home plate umpire?
Breaking loose some scar tissue, throwing the ball out to Julio.
On 2-2. It's fouled off. I thought for sure when I heard that, we must have him mic'd up, but they tell me no.
That's a directional mic right there.
That's an effects mic right there behind home plate.
Well, we know Yasiel wasn't hurt that bad then.
Yeah,
he didn't scream.
Gary said, don't tell me about your shoulder. 3-2. Rob Refsnyder grew up in Southern California, but was born in South Korea. Waits on a payoff from Julio Urias and shoots it back up the middle. Chase Utley has both assists. 2 out.
Well, we talked a little bit about it with De Leon. Like, oh, coming here to Yankee Stadium, is he going to be overwhelmed? You just talked about Julio Urias, but you also mentioned yesterday about, listen, these young guys, it's not a matter where they're playing, right? It's just the fact that they want to stay here in the big leagues and prove something to themselves.
Yeah, when they first get to the big leagues, your nerves and your excitement to do well is all about just surviving up here and proving that you belong. And Dave Roberts in his media scrum today talked about that's what he thinks is the biggest change with Julio Urias, that he really is starting to realize that he belongs up here. And I think you see that in the fact of how he attacks the strike zone. His last 3 outings, 17 1/3 innings, 20 strikeouts, only 3 walks. And that shows a lot of confidence in your stuff.
Gary Sanchez taking low, and Urias falls behind the young slugger 2-0. A snapshot of baseball future facing off here. 20-year-old Urias, 23-year-old Sanchez. 2-0. Ball 3. Sanchez debuted with a few games last year, but really his debut came in August this year. His first full month in the majors. And he was named the American League Player of the Month. Not just Rookie of the Month, Player of the Month. Hey, 3-1. That first month he hit .389, and he became the fastest player in Major League history to hit 11 home runs. Did it in his first 23 games. What's even more impressive about that is that he didn't hit any in the first 8 games. And so those 11 home runs all came in a 15-game stretch.
Over the last 30 days, highest slugging percentage in all of baseball.
Julio fell behind him 3-0, trying to battle back to work a 1-2-3 first.
It is quite a battle here. You were saying youngster against youngster, but Julio in the last 30 days also, only 1 out of 61 balls put in play has been well hit. That's number 2 in the big leagues.
Time's out.
And we'll get to this pitch soon.
Eventually, right?
Little cat and mouse going on here.
Everybody's taking their turn calling time. Not September baseball without dragging it out a bit. Now the 3-2. And Chase Utley with a busy first inning. 1-2-3 go the Yankees, and we go to the second in a scoreless game in the Bronx. Yep. Pantone 294 invading Times Square at some point over their weekend. Not quite the same atmosphere in here tonight without that large traveling group. 1,300, or did I see somewhere 1,500 was the final number
6 full airplanes. And I think 3 hotels had to take care of them.
Strike one on Adrian Gonzalez. It's awesome. You heard a lot of the players and Dave Roberts and anybody who was here talk about it. It was kind of the topic of the night on the way back to the hotel.
And also a topic in the news. You come into the Yankee Stadium and they were louder than the Yankee fans. They were
mocking the roll call.
Right. They left an impression, that's for sure. It was great. And there still are plenty of Dodger fans here staying for the series.
That one gets by Sabathia, but they're waiting on it. And Gonzalez is the first out. Joe Girardi, the manager of the Yankees, said, yeah, I think that there have been probably some other dates where there's been similar fan support for the visiting team, but there was never a moment where they were all packed together like that. Everybody's sitting together, and word is that some of the group salespeople here in New York have heard from the higher-ups, upset that they allowed that to happen.
Can't put them together, huh?
I wonder if they've ever seen a giant kind of banner flag out there.
They had a couple of them working.
Great.
Carlos Ruiz takes ball one. Apparently that flag was 4 pieces and they zipped it all together, and that's how they got, eventually that big of a flag into the stadium. Here's a 1-0 pitch, and there's a strike. Awesome. There were a few flags they had out there. It's a
lot of blue.
On to 2. Carlos Ruiz played the Yankees in the World Series in 2009 while he was with the Phillies and had a huge series. 2 doubles, a triple, and a homer. Waits on a 1-2 and takes it high. That 09 World Series was CC Sabathia's first season in the Bronx. And the Yankees won the title. That is their last. It was the first year of a 7-year, $161 million deal that Sabathia signed. It's been updated since then to include a vesting option for next season, and there's a few different clauses that could make next year official. One of them, and the only one that he still needs to fulfill, is to finish this season without winding up on the DL. And he gets Ruiz with an off speed for the second out of the inning. If he's able to make that happen, then the option for next year grants CC Sabathia $25 million.
In between starts, he probably just sits in his family room.
Don't move.
Gets takeout.
Hernandez making his first start of this series. Sabathia misses with the first one. Piquet had a pinch hit opportunity last night. 0 for 1. But made a nice play in center field right after he had checked into the game. There's a 1-0, and Hernandez rips one towards the left field corner. That's a base hit. It bounces its way to the wall. Refsnyder's throw to second is cut off, and Hernandez has a 2-out double.
Well, they really need to get Kike Hernandez back going, especially against lefties, because that's what we're seeing. We talked about before the game. Could this possibly be what, if the Dodgers make it to the postseason, face lefties, could this possibly be the lineup that they might use out there, getting those right-handers in there, and seeing Kike going to be a big part of that? That was a nice hit by Kike.
And now Seguin with an RBI chance in his first at bat at Yankee Stadium. And he takes one that sweeps in for a strike. We'll talk plenty about Seguin as this night goes on and his connection to this organization and this ballpark and this region. One quick note on Hernandez. You were talking about him against left-handed pitching. You know, last year he was the #1 hitter in baseball by many different statistics against left-handers. That's in batting average, on base percentage, slugging, right across the board in the slash lines. I would love for him to recapture that. Seguin chases, falls behind 0-2 as the ball rolls behind Brian McCann and allows Kike to take third.
Little changeup right there. Looked like McCann was trying to hold it in the strike zone, trying to catch it at the bottom of the glove, leave the glove up as high as possible, just missed it.
Sabathia trying to strand a man at third for the second time in as many innings tonight. 0-2, and he got him. So the Dodgers have left a man 90 feet away in each of the first 2 innings, and we go to the bottom of the second in a scoreless game. In 2009, replacing the original. It's about a block north of the original Yankee Stadium. Julio Urias, his first start in this ballpark. Just turned 20 a month ago. He'll face Starlin Castro to begin this inning, Teixeira and McCann to follow. After 3 ground ball outs in the first inning, Urias begins the second with a fastball that's dumped back, strike 1. Castro with a solo homer last night into the second deck against Jose De Leon. Career high 21st of the season for Castro in his first year here in New York. Longtime Chicago Cub. On 0-1, takes it high. Little jam shot, shallow right. Utley can't get there, and Castro has a bloop single to start the second.
Really, nobody can do anything on this one. It's kind of in no man's land. You saw Chase Utley kind of playing the pull up the middle, Adrian Gonzalez, and there's really nothing Urias could do either. He made a good pitch, jammed Castro. Sometimes it's good to be lucky rather than good, right?
To Mark Teixeira. He's in the final month of his big league career. Like the Yankees starter CC Sabathia, Teixeira 36 years old. It's been a bit of an interesting ride the last year or so. Last year he was an all-star. It was his best year since his first year in pinstripes in 2009, but this year by far the worst offensive season of his career. Entered spring training talking about playing a few more seasons, feeling great, and by August he had declared that this would be it. 2-0. He's missed more than 300 games the last 4 seasons because of injuries. Most notably was the wrist that he hurt during the World Baseball Classic, and that's everybody's fear attached to that event. Had the season-ending leg injury in August last year, and he's dealt with knee and neck problems this season. Drives this ball in the air to left, and Puig is there.
Julio's had 2 balls that weren't hit very well. One falls in for the hit. The other one just a routine fly. He's got to have some pretty good confidence right now in this environment. Gets into these guys. Tell you what, I feel really good about watching him pitch. It just looks like he understands where he is, who he is, and how to apply himself to the situation. He's got tremendous poise for his age.
Plan right now is for him to move back into the bullpen following this start. Although if circumstances have shown us, it's always a fluid situation with him. Brian McCann takes low.
I think that's been the plan for his last 3 starts.
Yeah, right.
When Scott Kazmir all of a sudden, has a relapse on his pain. Alex Wood, no. And Brett Anderson, no. Brandon McCarthy, no. So have to stick with the kid.
Alana, you've got an update on several of those names Oral Hershiser just brought up.
Yeah, guys, Brett Anderson's actually going to be starting game number 3 for the Oklahoma City Dodgers as far as the playoffs are concerned, as he tries to make his way back. As far as Brandon McCarthy is concerned, he's going to be throwing in a simulated game. That's the same that can be said for Alex Wood. As far as Scott Kazmir is concerned, with that thoracic spinal inflammation, no timetable for his return.
3-0 on McCann. So, talking with people around Yankee Stadium the last few days, I think people nationally are starting to realize how formidable 1 through 3 is looking for potential Dodger postseason rotation with Kershaw and Hill and Maeda. And while the 4th spot, there's not one bona fide option that you'd look at right now, I'm not sure there are many teams where you would say, oh yeah, that for sure is number 4. Castro sticks his foot back in safely. But the thing the Dodgers have going for them, and it goes back to one of the narratives all year, the depth, there are a lot of solid choices for that number 4 spot.
One of the kids could get the 4th spot, but you'd say, you know what, I want you to go as long as you can, as far as you can, and we may have a hard number on your pitch count, but you don't need to know what it is. They could split a start, De Leon and Urias.
I'm going to take a look at this one, guys.
Going back there when the throw is not where you want it to be, but sometimes it gets there sooner to tag the runner than if you threw it down by the bag. And boy, that one is awfully close. That's a good angle right there to slow down.
One of the best in the majors at picking men off already in his rookie season.
What you hear as a base runner from your coaches is, you got to watch out. He's got a regular move. He's got a kind of a slight balk move with the leg kick. And then he's got a step off that's real quick.
And he got it. His 6th pickoff this season to lead the National League, despite only being in the majors about half the season.
Well, the thing about the information, Nomar, which is they can tell you that it's quick and you can be looking for it, but you don't realize how quick it is until it happens to you.
Back to work on McCann. And a 4-pitch walk.
That is so true. So you're over there and you can see the angle. Sometimes when they tell you, hey, he's got a good move, good balk move, you're going, okay, I understand balk move, but you're looking for it. And what I mean by that is sometimes you're going, it looks like they're stepping home, but they're not, or they're able to look like they're stepping home and still throw it over. And then they say he's got a good step-off move, such as that one. You're like, okay, I'll be aware of it, but then you just don't realize how quick it really is.
Chase Headley, strike one.
The thing also is with catchers, when the guys that can throw from their knees, there's Tony Pena, one of the best, and they can warn you as a base runner, watch your secondary leads. Bonita Santiago throws from the knee real good. Tony Pena throws from the knee. You don't know how far you can get off on your secondary lead until they pick somebody off and you go, oh, that's what you mean.
Headley 0 for 3 with a walk last night. And with that walk, he's now reached in 25 of his last 27 games started. 1-2.
Urias has got a little Mariano Rivera in him. If you watch the way he comes to his stretch, as he taps his front foot, as he's looking for his balance. Remember this from Rivera since we're in Yankee Stadium. Watch this as he comes to come set, how he's going to be maneuvering his front foot to get his balance, to put his head in the right place, to get his weight.
Yeah,
that's the Rivera move. It's almost like a waggle in golf, where you're getting ready to hit your shot and you're kind of setting up over the ball and you're waggling. Because as you're doing that little wiggle, you're kind of giving your body and your brain the same proprioception of, okay, I know where I am in space, I know how to have my rhythm and how I want to start, and I'm in balance, and here we go. It's his part of his pre-pitch routine.
Time's out.
The 1-2. Fouled off. So Urias with his 6th pickoff of the season, and a half season really. Major League record is 19. Steve Carlton picked off 19 in one season. Carlton, the all-time leader. Mark Burley right up there at the top of the all-time pickoff leaderboard. And Burley never caught more than 11 in a single season. Urias was 6 and a half season. Another 1-2, and Chase Headley fouls it back again. Another guy that had a lot of pickoffs in his career pitched here, Andy Pettitte. He's 3rd on the all-time leaderboard.
The guys you've mentioned really were not picking guys off with the step-off move. It was the full leg kick, deceptive move that looked like they were going home, but all of a sudden they're coming to first.
Headley making Julio work. And hooks this one off the end of the bat into short center. Seager's out, trying to find it, and does. And the inning is over. Julio Urias, couple of scoreless innings. He made the Mariano comparison. Rivera Avenue just outside of here.
For the Dodgers, CC Sabathia and Julio Urias are both left-handed pitchers, and that's pretty much where the comparisons end. Time now for the Coors Light cold hard facts. When you look at these two guys, look at the difference, of course, in age. 20 for Julio and 36 for CC Sabathia. In fact, Sabathia made his major league debut in 2001. Urias 15 seasons later. And guys, he has pitched, I'm talking about Sabathia, of course, in 12 different postseason series. Julio just trying to make it to his first one. Lefty on lefty, but very different ends of the spectrum as far as their career is concerned.
The kind of matchup, Alana, that would be fascinating even if it came between two last place teams. Throw together the fact that both these teams are trying to track down postseason spots. Dodgers in a favorable position. Yankees in a better spot than anybody thought they'd be at this point. And an added level of intrigue to an already really interesting pitching matchup. 2-1 on Chase Utley.
CC Sabathia has done everything he can for whatever team he's played for. He'll pitch on 3 days rest. He's come in relief. He will pitch deep into games. He has been a war horse. It was one of the most attractive things about him in his prime, is that he had no care for his future. It was all about the present tense.
He's been an All-Star 6 times. He won a Cy Young in 2007 with the Indians. He finished top 5 in Cy Young voting 5 times. Strike 2.
He's battled issues with his elbow. He's battled issues with his body, with his shoulder. Fought through everything, but always wanted to take the ball. Never wanted to go on the DL. Wanted to figure out a way to get it done.
And he gets Chase Utley for the first out of the third. He had all the on-field injuries that he dealt with. And the biggest challenge and the biggest struggle for CC Sabathia came out of the public eye the last few years. Final day of the season last year, he admitted to a drinking problem and checked into a rehab facility the day after the regular season ended and the day before the Yankees played the Astros in the wild card game. Howie Kendrick Strike one. CC said the most humbling, humiliating, scariest day of his life at the time when he checked into that facility, but it's turned into the proudest day of his life. And he had the courage to go into that clubhouse and tell Joe Girardi and tell Brian Cashman what he was dealing with, and to face those problems head on. He'd been battling the addiction for a few years, and in that final weekend of the season they were in Baltimore, and while the team was celebrating punching a postseason ticket, he really realized how serious the problem was when his interest was in going back to the hotel and being by himself and feeding that addiction. He got himself clean. Proudest day of his life checking in, and proudest thing of his life getting clean and bouncing back in more ways than just the numbers on the baseball card this year. Is 2-1. Kendrick hits it softly to third. Chase Headley, 2 out. The base is empty. Here's Turner. Dodgers only one hit in this game, a Hernandez double in the second. Although in each of the first 2 innings they left a man at third. It was Kendrick walking to start the game. He was left at third in the first, and Hernandez left at third last inning. Sabathia 0-1 to Turner. Outside, ball 1. Cuts it in, 1-2.
CC really has been using all of his pitches as he's gone through the lineup the first time through. As you're going through the second time, you're thinking, okay, well, what can I look for? Is there a particular pitch that he's going to be able to attack me on? But he's showing them all as you're sitting there, even in the dugout. We're like, okay, there's a cutter, there's a changeup, there's a slider, there's the fastball.
And he rises one in there for strike 3. 1, 2, 3 go the Dodgers in the third, and Sabathia racking up the Ks. He's already got 5. LA is brought to you by the Dodge Challenger. Test drive one at your local Dodge dealer today. And by Jack in the Box. Taste the all-new Jack's Brewhouse Bacon Burger today at Jack in the Box. Limited time only at participating restaurants. That was Johnny Padres after his World Series clinching win in the 1955 World Series for the Dodgers' first world title. Complete game shutout and a 2-0 win in Game 7. 2 balls and no strikes on Aaron Judge. And as we look at the postseason roster starting to develop for the Dodgers right now, you think back to Padres in that 1955 season. He was nearly left off of their postseason roster. 2-1 on Judge. His last regular season win was in early August. He really scuffled down the stretch. It was only 22, so like Urias, fresh into the majors. Padres made the roster and then it was incredible, leading them to that Game 7 win. 3-1.
He didn't hurt himself on that pitch. It just slipped. He's a little embarrassed.
Judge hit a monster home run last night off De Leon. Careful here. 3-2.
That ball was crushed last night.
I mean,
Going
it
to
has
the
him
second
listed,
deck.
has him listed 6'7", 282.
Yeah, monster. The issues right now, though, strikeouts.
As they said in one of the NFL games last night, he admits to 355. That means 4 bills. That's what I think this guy admits to. That this ball was
282 means 3 bills. What you're saying?
Maybe.
That was his 4th home run. He was just called up to the majors a month ago. And he strikes out again. That's been the problem, striking out in about half of his at-bats. And he is the first out of the 3rd inning. We welcome you inside Game 2 of this series. Glad you've joined us. And I don't know about you guys, but this has been a lot of fun, this series. Something special about Dodgers, Yankees, and not just Dodgers, Yankees, but the fact that both teams are in a race for the postseason.
And the fact that the Dodger fans were way out in force last night, that brought a lot of energy at the beginning of this series.
Yeah, that really set the tone for this series, and you knew coming in that it was going to be an exciting series, as you mentioned about them competing, both trying to get to the postseason. But with those Dodger fans and that energy, it just took it to the next level. Now the Dodgers are here having the opportunity to at least win the series, to try to clinch a series victory here.
Not many teams have done that against the Yankees in their hot second half stretch. 2 balls, no strikes on Ronald Torreyes, the 9-hitter. 2-1.
Here at home, the Yankees have really gotten off to fast starts. 9 series in a row, they've won the opener of every series. But the Dodgers snapped that string on them yesterday.
Story with the Yankees this year is it's been a backwards one. They were sellers for the first time since they shipped off Ricky Henderson to the A's in 1989. People around here, boy, they don't accept a seller. Camp was pretty split going into the trade deadline. That's a ball, and it's a walk to the 9-hitter Torreyes. There's some said that still try and make a push for it. They weren't that far out, but they weren't playing very well, so they did decide to sell. And anytime you're selling, you're basically conceding that this isn't our year, build for the future. But an odd thing happened. They sold all those pieces. Beltran to the Rangers, Chapman to the Cubs, Miller to the Indians, Nova to the Pirates. And then they called up these young kids. And since the trade deadline, they have the 2nd best record in the American League. They've come charging back into the postseason picture and start action tonight, 2 games out of the 2nd wild card spot.
The lull that we witnessed in their offense last night, getting only 2 runs, was unusual. They've hit a little bit of a skid. Hopefully they'll stay in that skid until these Dodgers leave town. The Yankees have a tough climb, though. They're out in the wild card, but they also are playing a whole bunch of playoff teams the rest of the year.
Yeah, tough.
Toronto, Tampa Bay, Boston. Their schedule is very, very strong.
And last night started a home stretch of 20 games where 17 of them are against teams currently in playoff positions. 1-1 on Brett Gardner.
And I'll bet you the roster feels like they're playing with house money. You know, a lot of them getting their first opportunity to have an everyday job. Guys getting the ball out of the bullpen that weren't thinking that they were going to get it in key situations, high leverage situations. With Chapman and Miller here. And all of a sudden still there's value to the games. It's not just about playing time.
It's not too often in this organization, and the same can be said about the Dodgers and a few others throughout baseball, but where a young kid gets called up and there really are no expectations for the group.
Were they waiting for you in Boston, Nomar? Was the hype at that time with social media wasn't out, but there was always that
I don't know. I
expectation.
I didn't feel it that way, you know, as like we always talk about when you're just, hey, I was just focused on what I had to do to try to get there and accomplish your dream. I think they knew about me.
Gardner slaps one to left. Puig.
But at the same time, I didn't feel like, oh wow, this was a big old fanfare or.
Well, we anticipated Corey Seager's coming. We anticipated Julio's coming. There was clamoring for De Leon, who pitched yesterday for a month and a half.
But I also think, you know, as you mentioned, with the social media, with the more of the attention now that we have, you know, all the different media outlets on the minor leagues now, that has built the higher expectations or the hype, so to speak, to a lot of guys.
Robert F. Snyder takes strike one.
A generation ago, the Yankees were notorious for bringing high praise on their minor league prospects so that they could trade them away and get higher value and get veterans to compete in this market that could take the pressure of coming up here and immediately contributing. They didn't want to bring their prospects up here as much as they wanted to have their prospects be really highly rated so they could use them in deals to get veterans.
And it seems like that's a little bit tougher to do nowadays.
Yes, it
with
is.
Just all the, like we said, with all the attention.
I'd say the Cubs group had a lot of hype around them as a group, as a young group. Starlin Castro playing here was the beginning of the finishing off of that hype of moving Castro away from the Cubs. And all of a sudden, yeah,
with the Chris Bryants and
Rizzo,
and
that group all of a sudden started to be like, this is the group. Theo Epstein comes over, starts talking about timing it out in about 3-4 years. We're going to blossom. And here we are seeing it this year. It seemed like the hiring of Joe Madden and bringing John Lester were some of the finishing off pieces of that rebuild situation.
Cubs are 92-51.
Is that all?
That's it.
What's their magic number? 3?
Yeah, I think 3.
Ours is 16 right now, the Dodgers, with 19 to go. So if they have approximately 19 to go to have it at 3, you know how much they are dominating. 92 means they got a chance to win over 100 games.
Yep.
If they just keep their normal pace.
If they play well below their normal pace, they'll win 100. One of the best run differentials ever in baseball. The crazy thing is that it can all come crashing down with a game or two gone wrong once October gets here. Another 2-2 from Urias to Refsnyder, and it's a little bit in to run the count full.
They really have gotten Urias' pitch count up here. He's gotten a lot of 3-ball counts to a lot of these Yankee hitters. We're talking about how well he's done as far as minimizing the walks, getting the strikeouts, attacking hitters.
That one sneaks through a base hit. To Reyes first to third. And the Yankees at the corners with 2 out.
You know, outfielders lose the ball in the lights. To me, it looked like Adrian Gonzalez lost that ball a little bit. He made a jab step towards it, and then all of a sudden was not continuing on his route. Maybe he thought all of a sudden there was no way he was getting to it. Just a little punch ground ball found its way in the hole.
Only the second hit for the Yankees, only the third of the game total. Gary Sanchez with runners at the corners and 2 out. Strike one.
The other interesting thing was where Adrian was playing. I think it was a 3-2 count. A 3-2 count, you know he's running. A lot of times you'll have the first baseman either play behind to get that range to try to eliminate that kind of play. But we also know that Adrian, I mean, we know Urias has a great move, but it might have cost him there.
Nothing in 2. Working ahead of the big slugger Sanchez and trying to get out of this jam.
Carlos Urias Chooch behind the plate wanted high fastballs. He got a cutter down the middle and a fastball low and in. Missed the target twice on height, but he still got him ahead 0-2. See if they want to keep going up the ladder. Looks like that's what they want to do. I don't think he'll miss low with this one.
Oh, ball one.
Once he got to 0-2 and had that room to miss, he knew where he needed to make that pitch. That was a very good 0-2 pitch. Now you can use that same window to throw a breaking ball down and in. You can go right back up there, double up. You can come inside. Got a lot of places he can go. Going with the slider, the breaking ball down and in.
And he got him to get out of the third inning jam. A hit and a walk in the inning, but the kid gets out of it, and it remains scoreless.
2 starts, 2 wins for Jose De Leon. And what were you just telling me before we went on camera?
that I'd rather pitch in Yankee Stadium with 40,000 people and Dodger Stadium with 50,000 people than standing here with the mic.
You're doing a good job. What was it like pitching at Yankee Stadium last night, picking up your second win? Oh, did he just go yard? No, he didn't. It's fun to watch him play. What's it like?
It was awesome because I pitch in Dodger Stadium with 40,000 people rooting for me, and then pitching with 40,000 people rooting against me. It was pretty fun.
Right now, Yasmani Grandal is rooting against you with the sunflower seeds. You're watching Julio Urias tonight. Obviously, you guys are close. What makes him so special, and what do you learn from him when you're watching him? I know that he's left-handed and you're right-handed.
Yeah, I mean, the way he goes about it and his poise is something I gotta say I admire, because he just turned 20 and he looks like a veteran out there.
Can you believe what you're doing right now? Pitching at Yankee Stadium, pitching in a pennant race, you and Julio?
It's really unbelievable, but yeah, I gotta believe it. So it's really fun, and it's been fun. So hopefully we can do this for many years.
All right, the torture of this interview is over. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, guys.
Thanks, Alana, and thanks, Jose.
And thanks, Yasmani.
Yeah, and Kenta. Don't play it off like Kenta wasn't trying to give him a hard time by blocking it from the camera there.
Right. 4 games up on the Giants, magic number 16, and a very loose bench.
That also says a lot about when you're a rookie, and they can joke with you and have fun with you like that. It means you like you, they
put you in a
accept you.
cheerleader's uniform.
Yeah.
Puig puts it in play to third. Headley gets it.
It's very similar to whenever you hit your first home run and they give you this silent treatment when they come in. It's not usually, they don't do that if they don't like you. They usually do that like, oh, they really like you and they know you can take it and how they think of you, and messing around with him in his interview right there. And
those 3 guys on the end there, Seguin, Maeda, and De Leon. Well, there's Brock Stewart too. They were all in Dodger cheerleader uniforms coming in here. Cheerleading uniforms.
So was Will.
Yeah. So Will, the translator.
And it was this guy that led the charge in making him do it. Adrian Gonzalez taking ball 1.
The rookie hazing.
They're loving that they're wearing.
They dropped him off at the hotel about 5 blocks away, made him walk down the streets of New York, Madison Avenue.
Gonzalez pops one to short left. On comes Ref Snyder, and that is a 1, 2, 3, 4th inning for CC Sabathia. stellar stretch. His last 5 games unbeaten with a 144 earned run average. And through a few innings, still no blemishes in his first start at Yankee Stadium. Starlin Castro has one of the 2 Yankees hits against him. A bloop single in the second. Strike one. Urias, I mentioned a couple of times the youth, only 20 years old. Makes him the youngest starter here in the Bronx, current Yankee Stadium or old Yankee Stadium, in 30 years. Another than 2. Ed Correa. He's 20 years old and 3 days when he started for the Rangers here in 1986. Pitched a 3-hit shutout, beating the Yankees, but then retired because of arm problems only a year later. Dodgers doing everything within their knowledge and within their power to take care of this left-hander's arm. Career high in innings pitched. Castro digs one out, and he's 2 for 2 with a couple of softly hit singles.
Let's take a look at our Carl's Cam replay. And I mentioned earlier that Julio Urias picked up something from Mariano Rivera. Mariano on the left here. Take a look at the tapping of the foot and finding that balance before he delivers the ball. And Julio does kind of the same thing. Learn from the outstanding soon-to-be Hall of Famer. A little bit of a waggle and a drop step as you come back into your back leg to get your balance and exactly where you want to start and all the different body parts in position.
Mark Teixeira looks at a strike. Talking about the innings for Urias, he's now at 116 1/3. Previous career high 87 2/3. Teixeira offered and falls behind 0-2. Last year 80 1/3 and was slowed down largely because of the cosmetic surgery on his eye. And he said the hardest he's ever worked off of the field to get ready to be able to wear more innings on that arm. Teixeira passed his glove. Seager's got it at short. There's 1 and 2. Helping out that rising pitch count of Urias. 2 gone.
And as he gets older, he'll recognize that before even that ball's hit, to kind of just glance to see where your infielders are playing. Because you look at this ball, you know how he reaches out, and that's just instinct, but you also got to know, okay, I have somebody there that can make that easily, because if he happened to tip that off his glove, then there is no double play there where you're just going to say, okay, I can, you know, your instinct is go reach, but then pull that arm back and know that your middle infielders have that for you.
Wipes him clear for Brian McCann in a scoreless game in the 4th. Strike 1. Totally different guy than the one that debuted in this city back in May at Citi Field. Another than 2.
Yeah, Rick Honeycutt has done a very nice job with his mechanics. They were a lot more rotational with a big shoulder turn. Kind of the leg kick was kind of like a lazy circle motion. And he's gotten a lot more discipline with his shoulder turn, more accurate with it, a little more angular. And the leg kick has better pace and better direction, up and down.
You guys all right?
Right when you say that,
Oh,
somebody
it always happens. It's okay. Oh, McCann right on the elbow.
Lewis Coleman starting to get ready. Urias has reached 70 pitches. Can on to keep the inning going for Chase Headley. Headley's 0 for 1, popped out to short his first time, and he's down 0-1. Urias already one pickoff tonight, his 6th of the season to lead the National League. Picked off Starlin Castro in the 2nd. This is 0-1 to Chase Headley. This hit softly up the middle into center for a base hit.
You got to really refocus right here if you're Julio. You hit a batter, you give up a weak hit. The other hit in this inning was a weak little blooper. They haven't hit you well at all. You got the double play ball. But just the baseball probabilities right now, the ball's finding some holes.
They haven't hit him well at all, but they've made him work. And then you look at the 72 pitches here in the bottom of the 4th inning. So they've gotten his pitch count up, and we even talk about it. There's a difference about being those stressful innings. Well, he's had to pitch with traffic majority of this game, so it hasn't just been a real easy inning for him or that smooth inning.
Aaron Judge takes ball 1. Strikeout victim his first time. 1 of 2 Ks for Urias, who's walked 2 and given up 4 singles. Yankees left 2 on in the 3rd. They've got 2 on with 2 out in the 4th. One of the worst teams in the majors with runners in scoring position this season. 2-0.
That last pitch right there was a I don't want to make a mistake pitch. That was not a clean delivery, and there wasn't a lot of commitment. Kind of jerked it down there. Got to commit right here and have confidence you can get him out.
Carlos Ruiz trying to guide him out of it. Dangerous pitch on 2-0 to the powerful Judge, and he pulled the string. 2-1.
Veteran catcher behind the plate with 2. Ruiz. I'm not going to back you into this. You've thrown a good game. Yeah, you got a high pitch count, but we're not just going to give up the ship here and give in with a 2-0 fastball.
What does he do on 2-1? Went back to the hard stuff. Fouled back 2-2.
Slow him down, get him thinking 2-0 with that changeup, and then come back with the heater in on the hands. Big, tall, strong guy. You don't want to be able to extend. If you're going to let him extend, you want to take the sting out of the bat. That was the changeup. Once you slow him down, you got a chance to get it in on him. I don't mind going hard up and in here 2-2. If it gets a 3-2, then go off speed in the 3-2 count.
The training staff coming out. Judge twice called time there. Unlike Puig earlier tonight, middle of an at bat, sends the training staff back, says he's just fine. Saw the wince. Julio trying to get out of another jam. 2-2. And he lays off a changeup. Count goes full. Runners will get a head start. Get the feeling one way or another this is going to be Julio's final batter. McCann at second, Headley at first. Scoreless game in the 4th inning. And Urias home with a 3-2. Ball 4. Here comes Dave Roberts. Lewis Coleman comes into a tough spot. Urias leaves the bases loaded, but a chance for Coleman to keep his line spotless. Appreciation Day at Dodger Stadium. It culminates the weekend salute to Vin Scully. And in addition to having a chance to win prizes throughout the game, the first 50,000 fans there also receive a special commemorative edition of Dodger Insider dedicated to Vin's career. Go to Dodgers.com/LALovesVin. It'll be a must-have item, that Dodger Insider Vin Scully edition. Urias leaves after 3 2/3, and this has got to be a unique feeling to sit there and see your fate as far as your line in this game totally in somebody else's hands.
It's nerve-wracking. You're handed over to a guy that has dealt with pressure all year and done a really fine job. Last pitch Friday, Lewis Coleman in Miami, an inning where he got one strikeout, posted a 0. Right here, no room for error.
The former Dodger Ronald Torreyes, bases loaded, 2 gone, and a tie game in the 4th. And he starts him with a slider, strike 1. Torreyes walked his first time. Hitting 9th for the Yankees, but he's had a good series so far. Nasty slider, and it's 0-2.
That second slider right there, Torreyes, he didn't have the weight behind that swing. He was fooled. I don't mind him just walking him right off the plate here with another slider.
Missile in, and it's 1-2.
That one backed up.
Yeah,
Wow.
that's one of those ones where he's going to make sure he gets it way out there or break it really big, and it slips out the top of your hand above your index finger, and then that just sends it right there towards the inside with not enough spin to have it do anything.
Going back outside on a 1-2, and a ground ball right at Corey Seager, who goes the short way, and the Dodgers out of the jam in the 4th. Julio with 3 2/3 scoreless innings. Lewis Coleman in a big spot gets it done. Dodgers baseball on Sportsnet LA is brought to you by your Southern California Toyota dealers. Toyota's clearance countdown is on. Get the biggest savings of the year on the 2016 Prius family. 1963, the Dodgers swept the Yankees. They never trailed in that World Series. Sandy Koufax won 2 games. That was after Game 1 at Yankee Stadium, a block south of here at the new Yankee Stadium. Koufax won the MVP of that 63 World Series, winning a couple games. Drysdale and Padres winning the other 2. Sabathia to Ruiz with a 1-0, and that's low. Yankees out hitting the Dodgers 4-1 in this game. The lone hit against CC Sabathia was a Kike Hernandez double in the second. The 2-0. Ball 3.
Our last couple bumps, we've had world famous Dodger pitchers, Johnny Padres, Sandy Koufax. How fortunate we all were as Dodgers to be drafted and brought up in the Dodger organization to learn from those guys. The O'Malley family bringing Sandy and Johnny Padres and all the great ex-Dodgers around in spring training in Vero Beach. Johnny Padres then went on, after being with the Dodgers, to be the great Phillies pitching coach. And Sandy Koufax is still around with us and teaching people all the time, and a great influence on the organization.
Ruiz on the ground to Castro, who is positioned up the middle.
Been a great tradition of the Dodger organization that continues, and continue to keep the guys around, like with Nuke there almost every night on the home games. Sweet Lou Johnson, all the different people that still hang out and are welcome at Dodger Stadium and at spring training.
And I think it's just so important, and I think you're seeing other franchises starting to do that more and more. And it's the way you know, as a young one coming up through organizations, it's the way you learn, not only just from their knowledge, but learn about also the franchise and the organization and what it's about.
Kike Hernandez taking strike 1.
You know, for myself, obviously coming up from the Boston organization, I'm from LA. I learned so much about the Boston history and the tradition from guys like Johnny Pesky, Ted Williams, Carl Yastrzemski. Those guys around at spring training and talking to them.
Maury Will's still around. The great Roy Campanella was a gem to just sit with and talk and learn. They do that with the Yankees here still. Their greats are all around in spring training and throughout the year at Yankee Stadium here.
Two and two. You mentioned Maury Wills. He was one of Dave Roberts' mentors. That's why he wears number 30. Much has been written about Dave's stolen base in the ALCS for the Red Sox against the Yankees back in 2004. Hernandez strikes out swinging 2 away in the 5th. And so the Red Sox famously were down 3 games to none. He came in to pinch run, stole second, eventually scored the tying run on a Bill Miller single. That sent things into extras. They won it in extras and then eventually came back to win the series remarkably, down 3 games to none. Dave Roberts said as soon as he went in as the pinch runner, he thought back to what Maury Wills had told him, and that is one day you'll have to steal a base when everybody in the ballpark knows that you're going. And he thought about that as he walked out there to steal that base off of Mariano Rivera.
At that point in Mariano Rivera's tenure, he had not given up a stolen base in a playoff game. That was the first.
That was the 68th postseason game of Mariano Rivera's career, and he never allowed a stolen base.
There's 0-1 to second in. 2-1.
Nobody got on.
I was about to say, there's a big reason for that, because not many people were on base. Yes.
Dodgers looking for their first base runner since the second. Stranded men at third in the first and in the second. And Seguin provides it. What a moment for Rob Seguin, who grew up a diehard Yankees fan. Was drafted by the Yankees and then traded by the Yankees to the Dodgers this offseason.
I'd think about asking for that ball. I know it's not the first, and I always had home runs, and I always had a child and hit a home run and scooted out of a dugout to go see the birth of his son. But growing up a Yankee fan and getting a hit here in Yankee Stadium, I'd think about getting that one.
You wouldn't take any flack for that?
If I was his teammate, I would have thought about getting the ball for him. I had nothing to do on the other 4 days. I wasn't pitching.
Golf.
Yeah, but here at the ballpark, I could think about things like that.
Yeah. Strike one on Chase Utley.
We still know where the ball is. It's with CC Sabathia, so we can watch it. Alana's listening. She's got an ear down there in the dugout. Yell at one of the guys.
Yeah, maybe it'll be if there's a foul ball over by the dugout.
There it is.
Like that, or get rid of it.
I actually like my job, so if I yell into the dugout during a major league game, perhaps in the half inning, I can do something.
Now they all just got mixed up, didn't they?
No,
or did they?
No,
the ball boy has
Lana, run across the field. That ball boy's got it.
Nice working with you three.
Oh, look at him doing the trick,
No,
shuffling them up, man.
It's in the bucket now, though.
0-2 on Chase Utley. No score in the fifth inning. And Sabathia gets him over the outside corner. 7 strikeouts over 5 scoreless innings for Sabathia.
Sweep the series in 4 straight. All bedlam breaks loose on the field as the jubilant Dodgers try to reach Koufax, who started the sweep in the opener and then also was there to finish it.
It's our greater coverage of baseball tonight, brought to you by T-Mobile. Vin Scully's call of the clincher in 1963, the sweep of the Yankees. J.P. Howell comes into the game, replacing Lewis Coleman, who got the final out of the 4th inning in relief of Julio Urias. Top of the Yankees order. Howell's first one to Brett Gardner. Ball 1. Comes a 1-0. Catches the corner. 1 ball and 1 strike. Brett Gardner, 33-year-old out of the College of Charleston. Tried to walk on there. College of Charleston, and actually didn't even make the team through walk-on tryouts. Story goes that his dad wrote the coach a letter asking the coach to give him another opportunity just to come be a practice player. And so the coach said, all right, come and practice with us. There were a bunch of injuries, so eventually he got to play and became a star. He offered, and that presents a challenge for Ruiz, who's got him for the first out.
Ruiz, first of all, will be mad at himself that ball, he wasn't able to keep that in front of him. But despite that, he does a good job getting to that ball and throwing a strike over there to Adrian Gonzalez.
And he gets the one man that he was on to face. Ross Stripling coming into the game, trying to give the Dodgers some length. No score. '24th, the first 50,000 fans in attendance get a limited edition commemorative coin distributed in Vin Scully's honor with a certificate. Solid bronze coins are individually numbered. They're minted with an image of Vin and his signature greeting phrase. For more information, you can go to Dodgers.com/LALovesVin. Ross Stripling comes on. Dave Roberts uses the right-hander Coleman to get one batter to finish the 4th. Uses the left-hander Howell to get one batter to start the 5th. This will be more than a one-batter situation for Stripling.
Sure looks like it. He definitely has been rested. Hasn't pitched for 6 days. Last outing, of course, was a start where he beat Arizona back at LA. Went 5 innings, gave up a couple earnings, but you're looking for Ross to maybe give him a little bit of length here. An inning or two would be nice.
Bob Refsnyder, the Yankees 2-hitter. Right down the middle with strike one. And another rookie throwing for the Dodgers here. Been a starter for most of the season. He's another guy, though, whose pitch count and innings they're monitoring. Tommy John surgery not too long ago. This is his first full season since. Came back midway through last year after having that surgery 2 seasons ago. Smacked at Chase Utley. And Stripling retires the first man he faces. Ross said he came into spring training this year just trying to remind the front office that he was still alive. After he had that surgery in 2014, came back for a few innings in 2015 and did more than remind the front office that he was alive. He made the opening day roster. First one to Gary Sanchez, bounces.
Thinking about a couple of guys that they've had that you weren't anticipating even being in the big leagues. Ross Stripling, as he's mentioned, making it out of spring training. Then Brock Stewart. Brock Stewart going from single A all the way up to the big leagues.
Little cue shot. Stripling pounces on it. That was easy for him. Couple of outs to finish the 5th. We march on to the 6th and still no score.
Minutes to visit Monument Park. A lot of the Los Angeles Dodgers players did that today. Corey Seager, Ross Stripling, Grant Dayton, Austin Barnes, among some of those guys that went out there. And you guys talked about Rob Segedin being born in New Jersey, growing up a Yankee fan. Well, Corey Seager grew up a Yankee fan too. Both of his parents, Jeff and Jody, from the New York area. Corey Seager's done a lot already in his young pro ball career. He said he, for the first time in his life, had chills when he walked onto the field yesterday here at Yankee Stadium. Didn't happen in the All-Star game, didn't happen in the postseason last year. It happened right here at Yankee Stadium. Grew up a huge Jeter fan, is so mad at himself he didn't make time to get to meet him at the Futures game at the All-Star ceremony. It's a couple years back.
Now Kendrick bounces one to Starlin Castro to open the 6th inning. There was a story that Doug Padilla wrote for ESPN.com about Seager and his Yankee fandom, and mentioned one opportunity where he had a chance very close to meeting Derek Jeter. He was at the All-Star game that his brother Kyle was playing in, and Jeter came out of the clubhouse. Corey's dad introduced himself to Jeter. and said congratulations and thank you for everything you've done for baseball. And Corey was standing right there but froze. I'm sure it would be Derek Jeter's honor right now to meet Corey Seager. Work both ways at this point. Justin Turner, strike one.
Derek Jeter would probably like an article from Corey in the Players Tribune.
Turner is 0 for 2. Dodgers only have 2 hits against CC Sabathia.
You ever met somebody you froze, Oral?
I'm trying to think. Very quiet until I was introduced to Frank Sinatra when I was with Tommy.
Wow.
You know, we've all, Nomar, in the locker room when the presidents kind of walk through. And you don't really walk up and introduce yourself to a president. You wait for the president to come up and say hi to you. So I understand Corey's feeling of just standing there and freezing. You think Corey's dad would know how much his son appreciated.
Let me introduce my son.
The top prospect in baseball. Say hi. Turner shoots one into center. That's a base hit with one gone here in the 6th.
Coming into the 6th inning and base hit here, the Dodgers. I was thinking about when they just started this inning, they need to get something going. I think from an offensive side, you know the struggles they've had against lefties, but they've had opportunities. Right now they're coming in 0 for 3, runners in scoring position coming into this inning, but also just seems a little flat. You know, they see, I don't know, sometimes it happens when we talked about with Julio Urias in his outing, there seemed to be those long innings. He was always seemed to be pitching with traffic and getting into deep counts. At the same time, on the offensive side, it's like, okay, the Dodgers are trying to look for some momentum, pick it up on their side, and see if they can put some runs on the board.
Here is Corey Seager, and there is strike one. For 2 tonight with a ground out to second and a fly out to deep center. Right out near Monument Park, where he visited earlier today. Dodgers trying to extend the division lead to 4.5 before the Giants play tonight. No. A little bit low, 1-1.
Some respect there for the youngster in that call. The 36-year-old lefty on the mound that's got a huge resume against the youngster that's probably going to win Rookie of the Year, and the borderline call went his way.
Here's a 1-1. Seager jams it foul.
No, thank you. What's that? Yeah.
There have been 16 Rookie of the Years in Dodger history. Twice as many as anybody else. Yankees next on that list. Corey Seager all but a sure thing to be the 17th. And in a franchise history that is littered with great rookie seasons, this is the greatest one ever. A 1-2. Seager cracks it to Starlin Castro. He goes to second for one. Seager beats it out at first.
They finally get somebody on. We were talking about looking for a little spark. CC Sabathia has done a good job getting that ground ball, kind of keeping the hitters off balance this entire game, where you don't see too many balls really squared up. And good job by Corey Seager hustling down the first base line to just keep this inning alive, and see if Yasiel Puig could keep this inning going.
We saw Puig grimace during a first inning strikeout, but then come into the game defensively in the bottom of that inning and obviously stay in. He grounded out in his other at bat. Have you seen any ill effects following the grimacing in the first inning?
I didn't see in his last at bat when he grounded out to the third baseman. It was a ball away and he kind of reached for that ball, and I would think if let's say it's his shoulder as he was kind of moving, as we're speculating just by his stretching it out, that would really hurt it, because you're kind of stretching it out, outreaching and with the bat. But it didn't seem like it affected him after that swing.
Here's an 0-1. By the hand, Sabathia losing his balance in the follow through. 1 ball, 1 strike. 36 years old. Second among active pitchers in wins. Only Bartolo Colon has more. Trying to get his 223rd career victory. And his 1-1 to Puig. Hit foul, 1-2.
That was a frustrated swing, not because it hurts. He's frustrated that he knew that was the one he could have squared up and he just missed.
Puig just barely got a piece, and we'll do it again. Been a good sign, though, that there have been no grimaces on the last 2 full swings. You see him flexing the shoulders some there.
That was a good pitch by CC Sabathia, that cutter on the inner half, just to stay alive and get a piece of it.
Getting a lot of balls inside because of that home run last night over the right field wall when he pinch hit.
Went outside this time, and it's 2-2.
He knew he can go outside, knew he can set his sights out there to think about it, because they know, with the righties, you always see that slider away, soft away, hard in. But now that he says, okay, show you I can go inside, now he sets up that if he wants to go in, he can.
Coming in, breaking his bat. That short to Reyes. In time. On to the bottom of the 6th inning. CC Sabathia capturing some old form tonight. Bottom of the 6th inning, back at Yankee Stadium, still no score. In the middle game of this 3-game series, Dodgers taking the opener 8-2 last night against a right-handed starting pitcher. Against a left-handed starting pitcher tonight, only 3 hits. Ross Stripling's in there, 4th Dodger pitcher of the game. It was Urias to begin, Coleman for a batter, Howell for a batter, and now Stripling trying to eat up some innings. Ball 1 to Starlin Castro, leading off the 6th. Middle third of the Yankees order with Teixeira and McCann to follow. Castro has 2 of the 4 Yankees hits. 2-0. Stripling's debut, his major league debut, that memorable night in San Francisco, where he took a no-hitter into the 8th inning. And with the way that they're taking care of his arm, like we talked about last inning, Dave Roberts made the decision to take him out with that no-hitter intact. Rare that you have a situation like that pop up twice in one season, let alone in a first season for a guy making those calls like Dave Roberts. Of course, Rich Hill pulled out of the perfect game Saturday night in Miami. 3-1. Rich Hill has been nothing but class in the way he's handled it. The media and the follow-up. Comes a 3-1 to Castro. And he is 3 for 3 tonight.
I remember seeing Ross Stripling in spring training, making the opening day roster, and then everybody remembers April 8th, 7 1/3, no hits, 100 pitches, 58 strikes, 4 walks, an earned run that ended up scoring, and then the last outing of Rich Hill. The great trade the front office made to bring him over here, but a lot of patience to wait for the blisters to heal. But he's been nothing but outstanding since putting on that Dodger uniform. And Dave Roberts had to make 2 tough decisions on both of those gentlemen's nights. But everybody believes that he made the right ones, and he is going to be in line for National League Manager of the Year with everything that he has navigated this year and what the players have done to perform in front of him when he writes their name on the lineup card.
We go back to that no-hitter for Ross Stripling. Let's not forget he's coming off Tommy John surgery, or we've been the longest outing he's had since his Tommy John surgery. And then you even had Ross Stripling's father seeing Dave in the lobby of the hotel, and I was there, and he talked to him and just said, "Thank you for protecting my son and looking after my son."
So you'll want to be a big league manager, huh?
Teixeira hits it off of the glove of Gonzalez, who recovers to get it out at second.
Close to being a double play by a tremendous play over there by Adrian Gonzalez if he's able to come up with it, but even knocking it down and recognizing he can still get the lead runner, which is really important, because with the shift on, if he just goes back to first, somebody has to remember that they're going to have to go to third base, because nobody was over there at third base. If they didn't get that out, Castro would have been able to make it to third easily.
So Brian McCann. He's reached both times, walked against Urias, and was hit by a pitch.
Here we go.
Longtime Atlanta Brave, 7-time All-Star, 9 seasons in Atlanta. Now in his 3rd year in New York. 2 more years left on his contract, although there is some rumoring that he may wind up back in Atlanta. Of course, Gary Sanchez has had his loud splash here in his major league debut as a catcher for the Yankees. And the Braves would love to have a local product back there to help open up the new stadium next year. Cuts inside, and it's 1-1. Yankees brought him here thinking that his swing was perfect for this ballpark. The way the ball flies out of here to right. And last year he had a career high in home runs, 26. 19 this year. Waits on a 1-1 from Stripling. 2 balls, 1 strike.
Talked about Julio Urias and the changes he's made as a pitcher here with mechanics and the sharpness of his breaking ball, using his changeup a little more. Ross Stripling made some changes too since he first arrived on the big league scene from that day where he was throwing the no-hitter. Cut fastball slash slider like that one right there is a big part now. The curveball was always the second best pitch and the out pitch, but you can't always get that called for a strike. They wanted to give him one more weapon, so he's added that slider. A lot easier to control, to get back into counts, and it seems to be really disappearing on the hitters.
Got a bright future. Is 2-2 to McCann. Ruiz wants it inside, and it's fouled off.
Good job doubling up on that pitch. Good pitch, especially if you have a feel for it. That pitch right before that one was a perfect pitch. I mean, it looked just like a fastball coming out of his hand. It had a late break, late bite to it. It's like, especially now that you got 2 strikes, do it again, and that's what he did.
Staying inside. Left it over the plate, and it should end the inning. 3-6-3. Couple of scoreless relief innings for Ross Stripling. On to the late innings, and still no score. Holy weekend starting Friday, September 23rd, and running through the end of the weekend. Highlights including Friday's pregame ceremony with special guests, and then the limited edition commemorative coin giveaway on Saturday. Go to Dodgers.com/LALovesVin to learn more. How about some offense? Only 3 hits for the Dodgers against 36-year-old CC Sabathia, and Adrian Gonzalez, who has homered twice against him in his career, takes ball 1. Adrian 0 for 2 tonight, trying to extend an 11-game hitting streak. 1-1. 1 hit, exactly 1 hit in all 11 games during the streak. So if you add up the numbers, it's not actually been a particularly hot stretch when you look at it in bulk. Here's a 1-1, and it's 2-1. Karsten Charles Sabathia, the second. He goes by CC. His father, Karsten Charles the first, went by Corky. Soft ground ball into the shift, way out there. It was Castro to get Gonzalez for the first out. It was Corky that taught CC how to throw left-handed. Actually, a right-handed thrower naturally, and everything else he does right-handed. Said he was the worst pitcher in Little League that first year when he tried to be a righty, and his dad said, give left-handed throwing a try. I'd say it's turned out okay. 6 1/3 scoreless innings, and the crowd at Yankee Stadium shows its appreciation. By Nissan. Choose Nissan today for great offers on our most exciting lineup ever. Shop online at choosenissan.com. And by Children's Hospital Los Angeles. We treat kids better. CC Sabathia, 6 1/3 scoreless innings. He strikes out 7 Dodgers, but will take a no decision. No runs on either side.
Really saw the results of him throwing that cutter and lengthening his career. Now Adam Warren takes over. Guy who's gone to and fro. Chicago, back and forth. Now with the Yankees back here. 22nd appearance with the Yankees since coming over from Chicago.
And Dave Roberts immediately grabs Jock Peterson off of the bench. Trying to catch lightning here with a right-hander on the mound. Peterson tries to knock this one out of here and misses. Strike one, hitting in place of Carlos Ruiz.
Jock was going to hit that one to Brooklyn.
Yeah.
In come the reinforcements from the bench. You might be thinking, why is Grandal on deck when Jock is hitting for Ruiz? Well, Jock runs a little better, has hit leadoff in his career. Grandal more of a middle to the bottom of the order guy. So even though he's going to come in and catch probably, he doesn't have to hit for the catcher. You put him in the order you want on the offensive side, especially with only one out. So you're guaranteed Grandal will come up.
2-1.
A little harder to make that decision if there had been a man on right here with a possible double play. Then you might lose a player to get Grandal in the game.
2-2. Peterson pops it up. Sky high to center. Jacoby Ellsbury has it for the second out of the inning. They've reshuffled things out there. Aaron Judge left the game with what has been ruled a right oblique strain. So Ellsbury's in center. They move Gardner over to left and Ref Snyder from left to right. Here's Grandal. Here's a 1-0. And 2 balls, no strikes on Grandal, who could break this tie with one swing here in the 7th.
You mentioned that, Joe, and makes me think about pitch selection when you think one swing can end a game. You get here, first 4 or 5 innings, watching the scoreboard, seeing where you are. You know you got a lot of outs to get. Those pitch selection compared to now. Guarantee anybody on the mound is going to try and keep the ball away from the short right field porch. If somebody's going to beat you here at the end of the game with one swing, you're going to make it happen to left center to center field.
Perfectly placed on back-to-back pitches to even the count 2-2.
To Jock, and now here to Yasmani, throwing the breaking ball and backdooring it outside, so you don't have a chance to hang it on the inner half or down the middle and give him a chance to hit it over the right field wall.
2-2, and he got it. Disappeared over that same angle over the outside corner.
As we watched here tonight, it's been a great pitcher's duel. One started by a Dodger youngster, another started by a Yankee veteran. And boy, have they gone toe to toe. Been relief help now on both sides. An awful lot of strikeouts. And that has been such a nice game and well-pitched game. And now the Yankees have a shot to get a run.
Ross Stripling out there for his third inning of work. Back-to-back scoreless relief innings. Facing the minimum over his 2 innings. Gave up a leadoff single to Starlin Castro on the 6th, but then used a double play ball to face the minimum. Grandal stays in to do the catching. And Peterson stays in to play center. Chase Headley swings at a breaking ball, and 1 pitch, 1 out. Stripling, such an unconventional season. The way that he made the opening day roster because of the injuries, and then was so good those first couple of months, really month and a half. But then was sent down to AAA and then sent to Arizona after a game or 2 in AAA to try and, number 1, temper that innings count, but number 2, to strengthen his lower body. Jacoby Ellsbury stands in for his first at bat tonight, Aaron Judge's spot, and takes a breaking ball for strike 1. Ross was too reliant on that upper body in his delivery, and that was part of the reason he was having a hard time lasting deep into games. So he spent a full month strengthening that lower half, helping his endurance. 0-2.
Rick Honeycutt spends an awful lot of time talking to the pitchers about just making a good throw, just leveraging and getting everything in the proper order so that you can take the pressure off your arm and can go deep into games and can maintain your velocity and your accuracy. And then when watching Ross up close and personal and seeing what would falter at times, they really noticed that they wanted to get his lower half more involved. So many times youngsters grow up with great arms, and they are asked to throw a lot of strikes in youth ball and little league and high school and then even in college. And strikes are the main thing because they have such great arms. You just want to get them over the plate. So they're not taught to use their bodies, their hip turns, their shoulder turns, their legs, because coaches try to eliminate things in their delivery to get them more in the strike zone and make them only use their arm. So then they finally get to a level where just having a good arm is not enough. You need to have a good arm and accuracy and have it for a long time and take the stress off that arm. And so Rick, through the teachings of Sandy Koufax and some others in the Dodger organization, really talk about leverage and strength and using your lower half, that your arm's just really along for the ride.
Two and two on Jacoby Ellsbury. 3-2. Ronald Torreyes on deck in a scoreless game in the 7th. Both of these teams fighting for postseason positions. Dodgers with a 4-game lead in the West. Yankees starting tonight, 2 games back of the second wild card. Toronto and Baltimore would be in position of those spots if the season ended today. And the Tigers between the Yankees and where they want to be. The Tigers are a game back of the second wild card spot. The Yankees 2 games back. It goes beyond just the Yankees, though. Really a muddled picture in that American League wild card hunt. Should be a lot of fun down the stretch. Seattle's right there, 2.5 out. Houston 3.5 out. Even the Royals on the fringe of it, 4 out. Stripling's payoff.
We've sure had some youngsters pitch well here in Yankee Stadium. De Leon yesterday, Urias today, Stripling right now. Grant Dayton came in yesterday. These young kids, it's really exciting to see their arms and what they're doing. The other exciting thing for me is what's between their ears. They all got good heads.
A towering drive to right field, and Jacoby Ellsbury has broken the scoreless tie. That is our top tier play, brought to you by Arco.
A game that can be changed in one swing, and Jacoby Ellsbury did it. Breaking ball that normally is sharp and down for Ross Stripling was hung right there, and Ellsbury did not miss it. Mama said there'd be days like this.
Jacoby Ellsbury fought off some tough pitches in the 3-2 count. Had a long at bat and was able to get that mistake.
On the 9th pitch of the AB from Ross Stripling. B.D. Gregorius batting for the first time in this series. And Didi hammers a fly ball, second and back. The Yankees have gone back to back and lead 2-0.
Two balls that have been up in the strike zone. They want to go up. They didn't get it quite up high enough. That short porch, you don't have to get it all. Rob Seguin gives it quite an effort to climb the wall, but that ball is about 4 rows in, and no matter how much you can jump or climb, you're not going to reach that one.
Top of the order now. Brett Gardner looks at a ball.
Coming into this game, the Yankees had homered in 8 straight games. Now they make it 9. So in 9 games, they've hit 17 home runs.
It helps that 7 of those have been played here. Now Gardner down the right field line. Second and back. He just got under this one.
I was mentioning that at the 4 young pitchers that we talked about, I like what's going on between their ears, and you see Ross Stripling out there still battling. Yeah, it hurts to give up those runs, but I do not worry about his makeup, his work ethic, his preparation, or how he's going to move forward. These young guys have shown a lot of poise.
Ref Snyder in the air to center for Jock Peterson. But the Yankees have gone back to back and lead 2-0 after 7. Let's see if the Dodger offense can wake up and make a run in the final 2 innings. On Sportsnet LA is brought to you by BMW. See a Southern California BMW Center today for exceptional offers or visit SoCalBMW.com. Didi Gregorius stays in the game after his first pinch hit home run as a major leaguer. He plays shortstop. And Tyler Clippard comes in. Dodgers have seen him several times this year while he was with the Diamondbacks. Josh Reddick leading off the inning, pinch hitting, taking a strike. Reddick, one of the hottest Dodgers right now, hitting above 450 over his last 10. Nope. 1 ball and 1 strike. Hitting in Rob Segedin's spot. That's 8th in the order. Here's a 1-1. Shoots it to third. Diving stab Headley. Throws him out.
It was just unlucky for Josh Reddick. Just a great play out there by Chase Headley for the Yankees. As Reddick stays inside that ball, they have the shift on, and it looked like it was going to get by the third baseman, but he comes up with it and makes a fine throw across the diamond.
That was a huge play. You said many a times yesterday, this ballpark, all of a sudden, big things can happen. Dodgers were ahead yesterday, and you kept talking about get some tack-on runs, because you never know in this ballpark.
We got the leadoff batter up there. Yes, pitchers always want to get that leadoff batter out. He picks him up.
Chase Utley looks at a strike. Since the Yankees acquired Tyler Clippard, he's allowed only 1 earned run in his 19 appearances.
I'm sure a play like that for you as a pitcher picks you up all of a sudden, just gives you kind of another level.
Yeah, you just feel like you've got a gift. You know, very easily you could be looking at man on first, and all of a sudden the tying run at the plate, and now you don't.
Comes an 0-1. McCann wants it down and away, gets it down, but it bounces, and it's 1-1. Bringing Clippard on was a savvy move by this front office. Right on the heels of trading off both Andrew Miller and Aroldis Chapman. So it at least gave him a chance here in the final couple of months to have a solid back end. 2-1. And he's controllable next year as well. I'm sure they're glad they did it, now finding themselves in this wild card hunt. Two on the way to Chase Utley. Left over the plate and smacked to center, but right at Ellsbury.
Just an example of where you want your outs in Yankee Stadium. A couple of their hitters picked on the right field wall, and right there Chase Utley hit it just as good as those guys, but center field is a long way away.
On a night where the Dodgers have only 3 hits, the bases are empty with 2 gone in the 8th, and Howie Kendrick, the walk to start the game and was stranded at third, stands in. Lays off, ball 1. Big bats will come to the plate at some point. Whether it's here in the 8th or with a chance in the 9th. 1-1. Kendrick getting lead off tonight. So Turner's due next. Then it'll be Seager. Then Puig. Here's a 1-1. 1-2. Lost the bat.
Kobe Ellsbury's home run, 99 miles an hour. Go over the right field wall. Exit velocity. Exit velocity on DD, 94. Chase Utley's fly ball to center, 96.
See if Kendrick can reach and bring Turner up, representing the tying run. Clippers 2-2. And a liner into center. Ellsbury comes on, plays it on a bounce. And Turner will have a chance to tie this game with one swing. But it will be against somebody else. Going to Dellin Betances for a 4-out save. The last remaining piece of that haunted back end of the Yankees bullpen. The All-Star Dellin Betances comes in a 2-0 game. And pushes with MLB.com at bat, the #1 app for live baseball. You can enjoy game day, live highlights, StatCast, news, and more. Get MLB.com at bat on your favorite devices now. Dellin Betances has been an all-star each of the last 3 seasons. The last remaining piece of what they called no-run DMC. Dellin, Miller, Chapman. The guy they have under control for a while and as filthy as they come.
Well, he leads all major league relievers with 117 strikeouts, a 43.8 strikeout rate this season. And why is that? Well, his average fastball is over 97 miles an hour. The average.
Let's see if Turner can turn one around to tie this game. 2-0 in the 8th. First pitch fastball, tried to, strike one. Betances gave up 1 run from mid-July through early September, but has given up runs in each of his last 2 outings. Turner with a check swing tapper to Teixeira. The inning is over. On to the bottom of the 8th, the Yankees on a pair of solo homers lead 2-0. Slow Mo Camp, back-to-back home runs for Jacoby Ellsbury and Didi Gregorius, accounting for the scoring in this game. And it's Yankees 2, Dodgers nothing as we go to the bottom of the 8th. Jesse Chavez comes on to try and keep it 2-0 and give the Dodgers middle of the order a chance. They'll have Seager, Puig, Gonzalez coming up against Betances in the 9th. Josh Reddick stays in and plays right. It's replacing Rob Seguin out there. Gary Sanchez has taken the league by storm in his first month. Was called up 1 month ago, more than a month ago, and was American League Player of the Month in his first month. And over the weekend against Tampa Bay, hit a mammoth home run, his 13th. And that wasn't even his most notable trip up there during the evening. Now, earlier in the game, came up with a runner at 3rd and 1 out, and they were going to walk him intentionally. And ball 1 of the intentional walk, he reached out, made contact, flipped it into center for an RBI sac fly. 2-1.
Can you say he flipped it into center? He hit it to the warning track.
Yeah. So flipped is selling it short.
Right.
Well put.
Yes.
2-2.
Tell you what, Gary Cederstrom behind the plate today. You know what he's calling.
Here's that play, by the way. Yeah, flip is underselling. You're right. Chavez with a 2-2. And he drives one the other way, sailing back towards the wall, and the 3rd solo home run of the night for the Baby Bombers.
That's a big man with big power. Made that swing and drove it out to right field, and I started thinking, from my day, Andres Galarraga.
It's a good call right there.
That's what it looked like to me. Just a big, strong, thick individual that plays baseball really well.
Starlin Castro looks at a strike.
Since he's been called up, it just seems like everything he hits is just a home run.
Yeah.
And even you got reporters here in New York talking about, will he possibly talk about him for Rookie of the Year?
Yeah.
Because I think it's during this series, it might even be today, where he actually would qualify to be considered a rookie.
Be on the rookie leaderboards.
Well, just that status of rookie. You know, it's not a September call-up or in August, where they can still be considered a rookie next year. So because of that, they're talking about he could possibly be in those conversations for Rookie of the Year. It just tells you the impact he's had and the power he's shown in a short period of time.
Chavez trying to become the first Dodger to retire Castro tonight. He has 3 singles in his many trips up there. And there's 5 for 7 in this series. 3 singles, a double, and a homer. Chases a fastball for strike 3. The first out of the 8th. The series concludes tomorrow. Clayton Kershaw makes his second start off of the disabled list for the Dodgers. Michael Pineda counters for the Yankees. It's an earlier game tomorrow, 1 o'clock Los Angeles time. Mark Teixeira against Chavez. mentioned earlier, Teixeira reaching 400 career home runs this season. The 5th switch hitter to do so. And you can draw ties to the previous 4 for Teixeira. There's Mickey Mantle, of course, was a Yankee. Here's a 2-0. 2-1. Eddie Murray. And Teixeira grew up in the Baltimore area watching Murray and said that he was a big part of the reason he became a switch hitter. Trying to imitate him. The 2 others he was teammates with. Chipper Jones, they were teammates in Atlanta. And Carlos Beltran. They were teammates until the deadline when the Yankees sent him to Texas. 3-1. Ball 4. Homer, strikeout, walk for Chavez here in the 8th inning, and up comes Brian McCann. Giants will get started in game 2 against the Padres in just a bit in San Francisco. Clayton Richard for San Diego. Albert Suarez for San Francisco. Chavez 1-0. McCann yanks it foul. 1-1.
All right, all right.
Scoreboard watching for the Yankees is going pretty good tonight. Detroit probably going to get beat. Well, it just went final. They lost to Minnesota 8-1. Toronto looks like they might get beat 4-2. And Baltimore looks like they're going to win. The other team that they're chasing, they're up 5-3 in the top of the 8th.
So they would remain 2 back in the wild card, although they would be tied with Detroit at 2 back instead of 1 spot behind Detroit. 18 left after tonight. There's a 1-2, and McCann swings through it for strike 3. Second punch out of the inning for Chavez. Mentioned Toronto is part of that wild card hunt. That's where Chavez came from this year at the trade deadline for Mike Bolsinger. Chase Headley taking ball 1. It's the 6th time that Jesse Chavez has been traded in his 9-year major league career. I guess there were a couple of trades that happened before he was a major leaguer. During his pro career, traded 6 times. Awkward swing and a miss, 1-1. Gently hit to Gonzalez, who will take it to the bag and finish this inning. The Yankees add 1 on a leadoff homer from Sanchez. Middle part of the Dodgers order coming up, trying to erase a 3-0 deficit. Dave trying to put a capper on a shutout win for the Yankees. But the Dodgers have the right men coming up. Seager, Puig, Gonzalez due up in this inning. And a night where they have only 4 hits. And Seager hits one off with the glove of Teixeira. That's how this inning begins.
I'll tell you, that's how big the home run that Gary Sanchez hit that last inning. Because going into the 9th, you're thinking, okay, all you are is a base hit and a big home run away from tying the game. But now you need some base runners here for the Dodgers, and that's a good way to start.
First hit of the night for Seager. And now Puig. Bends backwards on a ball. Well, Betances has been, look at the full body of work, dominant. An all-star 3 consecutive seasons. But not quite himself the last couple times out. And the Dodgers hoping some of that resurfaces here. Comes a 1-0 and Puig takes it for a strike. One and two. Yankees have twirled 9 shutouts this season. Had one last week against a really good offense in Toronto. And trying to shut the Dodgers out tonight, one night after the Dodgers played at 8. 2-2.
And one of the best offenses in the big leagues in the second half of the season. Just have not solved the problem of left-handed starters.
Seager at first and a 2-2 to Puig. Got it.
I don't know if he calls that a curveball or a slider, but it is a hard breaking pitch that breaks real late. If you think about an 87-mile-an-hour fastball or slider, that's what that is, but that thing has deep movement.
So now Gonzalez trying to reach to make Jock Peterson the potential tying run. There goes Seager. He takes second on a strike. Dodgers' largest comeback win of the season a couple weeks ago at Colorado, and they erased a 6-run deficit over the final 2 innings. Ball and a strike. That was in a ballpark like this one where the ball flies well. Won it on an Andrew Toles grand slam down to their final out. A 1-1. And a liner to center. Ellsbury's there. And the Dodgers down to their final out in this one. Strike one on Peterson, who's up there for the 2nd time tonight. Hit for Carlos Ruiz in the 7th, right after the lefty Sabathia left the game. And fly to center. A little bit low, 1-1. 2 balls and 1 strike on Jock Peterson. In that rally at Colorado, he had a walk to help bring Tolles up. Trying to reach to make Grandal the potential tying run. The game with the Yankees hit back-to-back solo homers in the 7th off Stripling. They got another solo shot in the 8th inning. 2-2.
We've seen some 95s and 96s. Last few we've seen at 99. That brings that average to 97.
Yankees take this one 3-0. And the rubber match tomorrow between the Dodgers and Yankees.
It was a pitcher's duel to begin with, but then the Yankee bats broke open, and the 3 home runs is the difference. A silent night for the Dodger bats.
Yeah, it just seems like the Dodger bats really couldn't get anything going. They had some opportunities early, especially against CC Sabathia in the first 2 innings. They had guys in scoring position and couldn't get across, and it just seems after those first 2 innings that CC really settled in, and the bullpen for the Yankees was able to close it out.
Time now for Alexis plays of the game. It's the first time since 1957 that the Yankees had back-to-back home runs from players that didn't begin the game in the lineup. It's courtesy of Elias Sports. Ellsbury and Gregorius both coming off of the bench. The homer against Stripling. Sanchez added one in the 8th inning against Chavez.